So I weighed my entire amount of dough, and what I figured out was I had 3 pounds 11 ounces of bread dough, which equals 59 ounces. And from the 59 ounces, I divided that in two. In 2 loaves, each loaf is going to be roughly about 29.5 ounces for each loaf. So what that equals out to is 1 pound 13.5 ounces. So then what I've done is I've come in and started dividing my dough. I have the 1 pound weight and I'm at 13.5 ounces right there. So what I'm looking to do, I'm trying to keep that same skin, and that's a pretty good portion right there. So now I'm at 1 pound 13.5 ounces, and I have 2 loaves of bread. The next thing we're going to get ready to do is we're going to divide each loaf into 5 strands because we're doing 5 braids. So that's next. We're going to divide our 2 loaves of challah now into 5 strands. So each loaf will weigh the same, but we'll have 5 separate pieces that we're going to roll into strands, and we're going to braid them into a 5 braid. So I figured out that each loaf at 29.5 ounces, if I divide each loaf by 5, I'm just right around in a 5.75 strands. I'm going to hold that up for you. So what I did is I took my hopper and my counterweight off, and I came in and came to my 5.75. And what I'm going to do is start portioning. I'm going to see where I'm at here. Here, I knew he was going to be traffic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep them in order. I'm going to start a line, and I'm going to start with the first piece of bread dough I work with and go across, because this is 1 loaf, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the next. What that allows me to do is realize what bread I started with, what piece that's had a chance to let the gluten relax, and it's the first piece I'm going to start rolling my strands with. So the same idea, I'm going to come in again, and I'm going to roll another strand, and he looks a little heavy, so because he's heavy, I don't want to cut a lot of pieces. I'm going to put him right back into that dough. I'm going to drop him. Still a little heavy. I'm okay with that. I want to make sure they come close. But what I do realize is each strand, here we go. I kind of have a little bit of a sticky scale. So same idea, I'm going to come in and portion this. The same weight. And he's great. And I'm going to come along and I'm going to do that for each loaf. I'm going to have 5 sections here. The next loaf, I'm going to come in and do the exact same thing and portion it into 5 equal pieces. Then I'm going to show you how to roll it into the strands, and then we're going to do a 5 braid, and we're going to get those into the proof box. Okay, so I've portioned up the 2 separate loaves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm set to go to make 2 5 braid loaves of challah. What we're going to do now is we're going to learn how to form the bread, and what we want to do is make these beautiful strands. This is the exterior of the bread dough I originally put away to bulk ferment overnight, and it's still the top of my bread dough, and it's what I want to, once that bread is braided, is really to be the top part of my bread. It's come all the way from when we mixed it, all the way to when it goes into the oven. So we're going to start forming strands, and this is a 5 loaf, and as you know, I started up here at the top. So I'm going to start with this first piece. What I want to be able to do is create, and I'm going to do rectangles, but these are actually going to lay right inside this sheet pan. That's how long I want that strand to be. I don't want it to hang over. I don't want it to be too short. I want it to be just right. I want to form it into a beautiful round to get that beautiful form and shape around it, so that when we come in and I make the 5 braid, everybody has a beautiful round structure to it, and it's going to braid beautifully. What I like to do is come in and give it a little bit of a rectangular feel, but then I do a thumb turn. Everybody kind of has their own little technique. This is how I learned to do it many years ago. So I just come in with the heel of my hand and start tucking literally with my thumb, and I get a little bit longer each time. This bread dough's had a chance to relax, and what that means is the gluten is super happy, ready to be rolled, ready to be worked with. Again, I'm going to take my thumb and I just give it a roll, and I come all the way around, and I'm creating a seam. And I think I'm going to go one more time, and I'm just going to give it a little bit more of a turn. And come in here and give it a round. And I really want to come in and seam it really well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it, and I tend to be more right-handed versus left-handed because I'm super right-handed. So my bread dough tends to be a little bit thinner on that side. So if I have a thicker part to the bread dough, I tend to put it on my right-hand side because it'll roll it a little bit more even. You can see I'm a little thinner over there. So I'm going to turn him. He's a little bit thicker. And I'm just rolling with the round of my hands. I'm I'm not necessarily pulling, but I'm gently just giving it a whole lot of love. And that love is giving me that extension for that strand that's then, I want it to fit right inside. Like I said, it's going to fit. And I want my seam side to be down. I don't want my seam side to show. So there's one strand and he fits right inside my toucan. I'm going to come in here and do it with a second. And this is the exterior. This was the top that went into the walk-in overnight. So I'm going to turn it over. I don't have a lot of flour on my bench because I don't need it. I don't really want to incorporate it in it, and I don't want it to be on the exterior of my strand. So same idea. I just come in here and give it a real pretty round and turn. We're giving it a bend, right, and forming and shaping the loaf. And I'm going to do it one more time, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to seam him really well because I don't want that seam to open up in the heat. And yeast, once it gets hot, it's going to want to expand. It's the same idea. I'm going to come in. It's a little bit heavier on this side, which is good for me. And just get to know your bread dough. Roll it slow and steady. And I like that it sticks a little bit to the bench. That really makes it so it rolls to the size I want it to go. And I'm going to lay, so there's two. I'm going to do another one from this guy. This guy had a little extra, but I don't think he's going to be a problem. He's going to disappear right into my strand. So I'm going to come in here and do the same thing. You can see it's stretching. The dough is super easy to work with. Super happy. There's two. I'm turning him and coming along. And I'm going to do one more just because I can. Right, I'm going to tuck that extra dough right in there, and I'm going to start rolling him. Sheep him. Although I'm a little bit heavier over here, so I'm going to come here and stretch him over to where I want him to be, and make him equal all the way along. And same idea where that seam is. I'm going to drop that seam right down underneath and hide him down below. And I'm going to go through and roll all of them, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how to do a 5-braid. All right, let's make a 5-braid. Here we go. So I divided my dough up. Like I said, we have 2 loaves. And in those 2 loaves, we then divided each loaf up into 5 equal pieces. 5 equal pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 5 strands. We're going to make a 5-braid. And as you can see, I lay right inside. If somebody snaps back a little and gluten gets a little overworked, what you want to be able to do is just come in and put it back on the bench because it's had a chance to rest and relax, and re-roll them to get them to be the size you need. I have some bench flour, which I don't think I'll need, and my bench knife, which I always want beside me. So here I go. I'm going to take my strands. I have 5, and I want my seam side down. So each time I look and put my bread dough together, I want to make sure. And I'm going to come up top and just start pressing them together at the very top. If I see a seam, I'm going to make sure. I'm going to go that direction. There he goes, and twist him that way. And I'm going to do this guy. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come together up top. I'm going to push it together. And I'm going to roll my seam. I don't want any seams. So we're going to do 5 all day. So I'm coming right up top and just stacking them right on top of themselves, right up top here. There's my 4th, and I'm going to do one more, and I'm going to do my 5th on top. So here's the start of my braid up top, and I have 5 strands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And really what we're doing is we're doing 3 over 1, 3 over 1 each time. So I'm going to start at the very top. I'm going to try and keep myself, I'm going to start rolling and tucking as I go. So I'm going to take this 3, and I'm going to go over 1, 2, and go back to the middle. And then this is going to become my outside again. I'm going to do the same thing here. And it's just going to be the very start of the braid. Then I'm going to take my 3 over here, and I'm going to come over 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to go over 3. And I want to braid it very loose. This bread dough doubles in size, and so because of that, I want to make sure I'm not braiding it real tight and it just has no room to grow. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come here and take 3, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to take it over the top. And now as I start to get the braid going, I'm going to start tucking my top up here and making sure that I keep him nice and perpendicular. I'm going to take the 3 from the outside here and lay him over, and I could stretch him out a little bit and get my braid going. And like I said, I start kind of turning and tucking the top because I want to tuck those seams. And here I go. I'm 3 over here. I'm going to go 3 over 1, 2, 3, 3 over this guy. And I want to make sure I keep him nice and straight. Same idea here. I'm going to come over 1, 2, 3, back over to my 3. When I see a seam, I want to make sure I turn him and put him back down because I don't want any seam. And each time I'm kind of tucking the top, bringing my top in. I'm going to go the same here, 3 over, nice and loose, all the way across. I'm going to go 3 over, When you get here, you don't want to get confused. 1, 2, 3, and you're going to take 1, and it's going to go over 3, and out here, it's going to go over 3, and very loose. Same idea, I'm bringing my braid up to the top, tucking my top. And I don't want to necessarily stretch it because I don't want to pull the bread dough, but it's super elastic right now. I'm really happy. So 1 over 3 again, and I'm going to bring it nice and loose. I can almost see through it all the way down to the very end. And I'm going to keep going. And then I'm going to do the same thing I did there. I'm going to come in and push my dough together, and I'm going to round it at the very bottom. And I have my top. And that's a really pretty 5 braid. I'm going to lay him right across. And he's ready to go in the proof box. And we're going to do one more. So once again, we're going to come in here, and we have our center. This guy, do the same thing, and I do the same thing each time. I come in and I lay it on top, at the top, and I press it in. Do that here. Same. Press it on top, and I want to keep him nice and straight. Here's number 4, and I'm going to stack him right on top. And last but not least is number 5. I'm going to bring him on top. My sheet bed. So here I go. So I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to keep my top. I'm going to start tucking it. But I'm going to do 1 over 3 each time. 1, 1, 1, 2, 3. And you can start on either side. I have it right-handed. I have a tendency to go right. So 1 over 3. And I'm just going to lay it across because that's the start of my braid. And I'm going to turn any seam. I want to tuck my seams down. Again, I have a seam here, and I'm going to do 1 over 3. Straighten them out and be nice and organized. And 1 over 3, and I'm going to lay him down. Give him a little extension. Same idea, I like to keep him very vertical. And I'm going to go 1 over 3, and he's nice and loose. I can almost see through 1 over 3. Again, here we go, 1 over 3. I'm going to do it again, and each time I see a seam, I'm going to tuck him down below. I don't want him to be on top. I don't want it to be a part of the finished bread dough. 1 over 3. And I'm going to go all the way down. And again, I'm going to tuck him, and I'm going to keep him vertical. And I don't necessarily want to stretch them. And I'm 1 over 3. 1 over 3 each time. And here I'm going to keep him tucked. And if I run out of room, I can always just move him up a little. Give myself a little room to grow. Okay, 1 over 3. 1 over 3. 1 over 3. And then I'm going to seal these together, and I'm going to tuck them under like I did before. Him pretty and vertical. And I'm going to lay him on the sheet pan. And now what we're going to do is we're going to load him in the proof box. And we're going to look for a double in size, double in rise. Yeast is going to get warm and relaxed and have a chance to give us an accelerated rise. And that's what a proof box does in a commercial bakery, is it kind of makes it go a little bit quicker, a little bit faster. We add humidity to it. And the bread dough loves it, and it gives us a little bit faster chance to load it into the oven. So that'll be next.